Oh. Hello. My name is Dr. Bartosz Milewski. I'm 49 years old. I graduated from Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle, Washington, painting and videography. Later on, I went to the Kraków Arts Academy in Kraków, Poland, and I made a master's degree and a doctorate in painting. I teach at Vistula University in Warsaw, and if you want to punish your teacher who doesn't, you have to do something. You have to do something. My video channel has only less than 200 subscribers. That's not good. But if you want to humiliate me and punish me somewhat, if I have 500 subscribers, then I would cover 100 pages of A3 paper with horizontal lines. I have them. And I hopefully become better at drawing straight lines. So remember, just the 500 subscription, you will make your teacher, your art teacher, suffer the way he makes his students suffer. And now for something completely different.
Previously on Artistic Workout.
Mr. Marcin Dybowski,
Thank you, our best students.
what did you have for breakfast?
It's a stove.
Don't mention Malevich.
Till teacher sees himself in the copper plate,
Exactly.
it won't do anything to your skin.
Water, not enough water, wrong press.
Cheers.
Let's go and show to the
Fortunately for emergencies,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have this here.
It was a last piece of my paper.
You didn't tell us about
So who invented aqua tint?
teacher. Never mind that.
Never mind.
That was a bad
This
joke.
is what you're going to be learning almost, right?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh
I
no.
ruined the ice, so I had to make it black.
No, I didn't learn anything new.
Those traditional techniques supposed to open minds for other projects as well. I think this is a very, very beautiful view, yeah, that the young people still want to learn and they are happy with it.
This guy is me, and although he's more handsome.
And that's why they're holding the microphone.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello. We are in the drawing and painting room of the Vistula University in Warsaw. It's graphic department. And let me show you some things. Here are a lot of things printed off Pinterest, so it's a wonderful source of information. These are the proportions of the head. One of the things that I start with to make it difficult right from the start. This is how the head is constructed according to Andrew Loomis, who worked in advertising and wrote a book on drawing anatomy in the 1940s. So, as we would say, old school advertising, but a very good book, still reissued, still in use, also translated to many languages, including Polish. I use this book. When drawing faces, you also need to know how to draw parts of faces. So noses, lips. This is an example of construction drawing of a circle, which then becomes a sphere. The physics of light. See, this is the reflected light. So the shadow doesn't end up here, and even in the sketch, our brain interprets it as three-dimensional. Similar thing with a cylinder, also reflected light. Very important in creating the space, or the 3D look. Human proportions, construction drawing, simplified form, and a more refined drawing, although without shadows. Similar concept. Proportions of humans. Here more elaborate. This one is very simple. I would say 8 to 7 heads. Okay, I made a little correction here because there's a muscle, actually should be wider. So 8 heads, and how it is drawn, what I will discuss later. First you measure a person, because you might be looking at a different angle. 8 is the maximum amount, or the ideal body. Usually it's something actually 7, half-ish of the head, and the legs are not that long. This is something to remember. First head, the second head is on the nipples, especially in the male. This is more of a constant thing. So the second head is nipples. Here also in the female body, belly button is about here, about the third head, and then goes the fourth head here, or let's say here. So, right, then we have the legs. The next 4 heads are a little bit less. So, some basic proportions. What else? A male is 2 heads wide, but when you turn it around actually. And the female, although a man can be even wider if he has really big muscles, the female is more like 2 widths of the head between one shoulder and the other shoulder. Actually not exactly shoulder, because this is the widest part. You see? The hand is tricky. In a male, it's the size of the face. In a female, it should be a little bit less usually than the face. Not the head, but the face. And I will discuss the proportions of the face some other time, like eyes being in the middle of everything. That's the color wheel invented by Isaac Newton. We'll talk about it later. Here are some examples of construction drawing. Construction drawing is the vertical axis is where you would start it, and then you measure left and right, okay, with a pencil, so you have a symmetry, and you do other measurements as well, but again, I will discuss it later. So, more of that concept. This is something, although it's not exactly well drawn, but it shows you how the face is sort of cylindrical, so the eyes are located also on a round surface. These are gradients, so some exercises to draw transition from very dark to very light with different sorts of pencils, different softness. So you have 2H, H standing for hard, HB, which means hard soft, or hard black actually, because the softer pencils have a B. 2B, or not 2B, B standing for black, but could actually mean also soft. 6B and 8B. Notice how the darkness increases while the precision decreases. So the hard pencil has fine grain. Drawing in hand, starting from simplified form to more geometrical than refined. What it is lacking is values. That is light and shadow.
No, to show the separations, we have to make it like that. Otherwise,
Yes, it works. It works totally. You showed me something different, actually. Because it's lighter, but you have a lot of variety. A lot is going on in the lighter tones. Okay, and because the tones are lighter, you have more of a pattern. Hello again, that's me again. Now I'm at my studio, home studio. I think I'm a bit shy about this thing, talking to a device and recording it. Since today, in this episode, I want to talk about the basics of drawing. However, I would like to give you some context, wider context of what you can expect, what sort of pleasures lay ahead, how it's all done, some surprising facts as well. I have all kinds of stuff, and believe me, when you paint and draw and teach in the same area, the same space, it's very difficult to have it all nice and organized and tidy. I call it my magic room. You clean, the next minute you have the mess again. So it's just magic. These are my sketchbooks. For about 3 years I have been drawing about 1,000 sketches a year. So, and these examples are of sketches done in class. That's a mannequin, that's not a naked guy with a butt. Sketches in class, as I say, because in between, like walking around the class and giving people an advice, looking for mistakes in drawing or things to do in painting or mistakes in painting, although painting is a bit different from drawing. In drawing you more or less have it done right or wrong, and yes, there is something like expression in drawing, gesture, but still I would say that it's more 0 or 1, black and white, like either you make a mistake or you don't. So this is horrible, this one. Okay, I don't know what that was. So drawing after drawing. This sort of drawing is called contour drawing, linear drawing. Okay, this shadow is kind of funny. You might have guessed I'm not using a pencil at all. I'm just using a ball pen. So there's no erasing. You have to be quick. If they are far away, the likeness for me becomes a more difficult subject. A continuous line going from one side to another, hardly ever do I correct it to give it more weight, because when it comes to line drawing, there can be a different strength or width of a line, So typically a lighter touch means, let's say here, the bridge of the nose, right? It means the light is coming from that side. Or another thing that it can be used for is hard tissue under the skin. So whenever there is a bone under the skin, like in case of the finger, the top of the finger, you use a finer line. And this side, the softer tissue, would be drawn with a stronger, wider line. The student called I have a question. I think this was him. This line is kind of nice, delicate, and it takes skill to place the eye in the right place. Our art history teacher, Steven Vroom, so hello Steven Vroom, if you're listening, said some people say that Matisse wasn't able to draw, whereas he could draw a face with just a few lines. And I was thinking, hey, maybe I can do that. With line drawing, you don't go back and forth. You have to just follow the contour, focused on the actual object that you're drawing. Object being a human being here. Not that good. A mannequin. Okay, some sketchy. Here is my desk. The glass is old, manufactured in the communist times, so it's not of good quality. The Warsaw Spire is actually, it's cheating, but it's the tallest building in the European Union, I think. So there are 3 types of drawing, and often they are combined in one work. One of them is contour drawing, and I showed you some rules of contour drawing, line drawing. It was used, for example, on Greek vase painting. Asian art uses that as well. And then we have value drawing, which has to do with light and shadow. And to think of it, European drawing and painting has evolved into being something of an illusion of the 3rd dimension. So the way I imagine it, how it went is, if a painter made a better illusion of 3D than another painter, this artist would have more praise and more commissions. And it's something typical of European tradition in that respect. So I heard a story during one of my art classes in the US that a European painter was commissioned to paint a portrait of a lady, Japanese lady. He painted it, and the Japanese lady cried, "Why is my face dirty?" Because in Japanese art or Chinese art, there is an outline of the face, and from what I remember, hardly any shadow or no shadow at all. Whereas Europeans went for that 3D look. I will talk more about this value drawing. Perhaps I will repeat myself, but I found out that by repeating, as the Latins say, repetitio est mater studiorum. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be so cool that I learned some Latin sayings by heart, so I would appear smart. Now I don't care. So much, I guess, for a very long introduction. And now we'll do some simple exercises, starting with how the hell am I supposed to hold a pencil? And by the way, which one is correctly sharpened? The one on the left or the one on the right? Or neither? They are both not very sharp, but the correct way, according to many purists, is that one. But it's true, you know, if you go to value drawing, you want to have that long graphite. So that's how you sharpen it. And then you take sandpaper and sharpen the tip. And the sandpaper comes in special blocks. Okay, so how do you hold a pencil? So 3 points. I can hold it like this. I can hold it like this, but still keeping those 3 points. And now the pencil is steady. I can walk around the class and ask my students to take the pencil away from me. And I guess they will break my hand, my wrist first, or detach my arm before they can actually take it away from me. Okay, so by holding it like this, I don't apply much force, but I have a firm grip. If I hold it like this, and if it doesn't move around, then I have less of mistakes, errors. A significant part of drawing, being able to draw, is the manual control over your tool. And the second very important thing, perhaps even more important, is to be observant and to look. Yes. I hope I can do it quite well, because the cell phone, which is my camera, is in my way. Let's practice drawing a straight line. So at first I'm doing something that is not a straight line, because when I think straight line, I do this more or less, because my arm moves here. So I create an arch. In order not to make an arch instead of a straight line, one has to compensate with the wrist movement. So if you think you draw a quote, smiley line, you will, after a few passes, draw a straight line. Okay. There are people who are better than I am, I think, in drawing straight lines, because they deal a lot with architecture. However, no, okay, not so good. So here it's going down a little bit. So in the next pass, and I really have this in my way, the camera, the next pass I will try to compensate for this here, and I will try to go up by a little bit, yes. Okay, it's going down a little bit, and especially here. Another thing is, this paper is pretty firm. With other paper, you have to make sure that it doesn't dance around. I have it here, so what if I wanted to draw a straight line and the paper was just, moving? You don't want that. So hold your paper with the other hand. This grip, the grip, and you can experiment with different positions of the pencil or other tool for that matter, but it has to be a firm grip. What if I'm loose? See? Doesn't work. Am I exaggerating or what? Almost. Another trick, by the way. Use a light touch. Because if you make a mistake, but you had a very light touch, then you can just correct it and nobody will see. Also very important in constructive drawing. Oh, I'll give myself a C. The next exercise will be to draw ellipses. And as some students say, I will go to hell and I will draw ellipses forever. That will be my punishment. Most of people say that it is better to have the wrist firm. So don't go from your wrist, but use your body here. Now the movement of your forearm and shoulder. Whatever. So this is firm like a robot's arm. But here is where, the rest of your arm swings. And you can do something in the air without touching the paper. And then when you're sort of ready, you go. And you can cover the entire area. Yeah, the camera is really in my way. So, this exercise. Maybe I can move it a little bit, huh? It's getting on my nerves. Okay, actually I will take something else to be more visible. So, another device. A piece of graphite. It's not sharp, but we don't care. Okay, so again, I'm holding my paper and drawing. There you go, a little bit better. All right. Big, small, smaller, smaller, bigger. It is important when you do that not to put your paper sideways, because if you put your paper sideways, that becomes a different exercise. And besides, you cannot put your easel sideways if you're drawing or painting on a board that's attached to your easel. Okay, see how here the paper is not supported? That might be a problem too. And here it's uneven. So little things like that you perhaps wouldn't think about. So a sideways ellipse is something else. So we have sideways like this, or the other one, sideways the other way around. This appears to be more difficult. Okay, and again, the paper is bending. No good. This is bad actually. This is bad. This also. Now then actually, if you don't draw one on top of the other, you can look for your best, okay, ellipse. What I do with my students, I make them vote for the best ellipse among other students. Horizontal. Yet another exercise. How many should you do? Okay, let's say 10 of these, 10 pages, 10 A4 pages or letter in the US. And 10 or 5 or 10 for these lines, and then, you make an exercise of having a few pages of vertical. See what the paper is doing? That's bad. Okay. You don't want the paper to be dancing around. What other exercises? So we're still in the realm of having the control over your hand. Now you can take a small object, and another thing that you can practice, cross hatching, because you know when you have a pencil you can go from dark to light, you know, and we will be talking about it also. But another way to make the surface appear darker or lighter is to do cross hatching, and you can do that with the pencil, of course, but there are different media that you cannot do the shading. It goes like this, so you have to resort to cross hatching. Nah, too wide, huh? This is pretty light, but if I go like this, then this surface from a distance will appear darker. Then I can go like this, and I can go like this. So this is the darkest. I can also play with the spacing. So the lines go like this, so each one is separate. I try to make the spaces regular, even, and I want to make sure that my line is not bending, at least in this exercise. So the exercise is to cover it evenly with lines that go like this, and see how the paper is dancing around. I don't want that. Okay, this is the easiest, I think. Although it also takes practice to make it appear more or less even. Then you go like this. Although now the telephone is in front of my eyes, so it's not that easy. And notice how I don't turn the paper around. That would be cheating, and in Poland you go to prison for cheating. Nice joke. Not true in this case. Okay. Now this one becomes, you know, my eyes hurt. Okay, so then you go with your horizontal lines. Okay, and I know how all these three people that look at my videos now will say, oh, you're not doing the best job. And try not to do this. So stay in the shape. And then you go like this. Vertical, yeah, correct. So you have cross hatching. What else? If you want to suffer more, then you can try to do some sort of a gradient. Okay. Now in practical terms, you know, I go fast. As you see. Okay, so let's say this, then half like that. Okay, a quarter like this. And then the darkest area will be here. So you can also play with spacing. Okay. To make it less abrupt, actually, I can make my lines uneven. That's also a thing. What else can be done? Then emulating various textures, like you draw a tree, for example, then you can go like this. You know, this kind of a leaf shape. All right. So that's possible too. You can combine them, no problem. Well, it's more important if you have a cylinder. Okay, so shadow here, light here, something in the middle. And by the way, I will talk about it later, and I already had reflected light, sort of. Here you see the reflected light, which is very important for the illusion of 3D. Shading along with the form. So in this case, you would go like this. The lines become arched. And I can make it denser here. Or what? I can, and lighter here, something like that. And even in this primitive drawing, because you have a reflected light here, you have a shadow, the brain is starting to process it as 3D. A sphere. God damn it. Okay. Actually, a bit of constructive drawing, you know. I'm trying to make these lines, these guidelines, very delicate, and then can measure the exact space here, here, and then, okay, here, and somewhere here. Triple check it, because it's only a pencil, it's not a laser device with an atomic clock on board. If I want to have more lines, that's okay too. These are my guides. And if that's not enough, okay, why not? Again, see, more, right? Okay, so I have this, see, it's pretty even. I can check it for 4 times, whatever. And I want to draw a circle, a sphere. So I start here, here, here with roundness. And then I can use a pointed line or a very delicate one. Why? Because if I make a mistake, then I go, nothing happened. And everybody's going to be like, wow, a master, okay? So actually, again, one of these tricks. And you compare this, these, all of these here. But visually, you're starting to have something that's called negative space. Well, more or less, it's not exactly negative space. It's something, empty space here and empty space here. You compare these, and then you compare the positive space here and here. You know, you look if visually they are symmetrical or not. Do you see the dotted lines? Yes, you do. Okay, thank you. So now, connecting the dots, right? And I didn't need a compass to make a pretty nice circle. Now I can make the line a little bit stronger. Whatever, what is this? HB pencil. So I can use a softer pencil to make it darker. Yeah, you will learn about it. I will tell you. Okay. All of this effort to show you the shading. So again, there will be a reflected light here. So shading with the use of lines. You follow the form, the shape goes like this, not only like this. So it's because it's not a cylinder, it's a sphere. So you go like this and this. So this is the shadow, more or less. The direction of the lines helps the perception, but we should put a shadow here somewhere also and cast shadow, and it will be the darkest here. So you know, and this side of the sphere also a bit darker. There is some shadow here. It's not completely light, but it's not as strong as here. So notice how we have the 3D illusionistic effect, okay, with some simple means. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but I want you to practice simple things that will be used later, as well as repeating certain things so that you remember. And as I said many times, don't worry about having or not having a talent. Same thing. Talent doesn't exist. You can do it. Practice. Start small, so your brain doesn't go into escape mode. So first, you practice just, I'd say 10 minutes a day. After a while, you become addicted to drawing, so to speak. So drawing will be associated with pleasure, and then you can start drawing more. Yeah. So holding your pencil so it doesn't fly around like this, you know. Oh, I have a special blister here actually. From my practice. Okay. Yeah. So practice drawing lines. Ellipses. More lines. If you go like this, then you know the other time you go like this. You adjust the two movements and find an equilibrium of sorts. Yeah. Maybe faster, maybe slower. I don't know. Okay. Can also incorporate some of, if you want, vertical lines. So I guess this concludes the exercises with your just the control, manual control. The next thing, maybe in the next episode, will be to draw something without looking at the paper and following the contour. As it will turn out, you can get pretty close to the actual thing when you don't draw from your imagination, but you focus on the thing that is actually drawn. So the steps would be first to draw without looking at the paper at all, and then draw something by looking at the paper every 3 seconds, let's say, but not more. Because if you look more at the paper, if you look at the paper more, that is huge, or the only source of mistakes. So actually, in order to draw, you can forget how to draw, how you think it should be done. And just trust, as they say, your right side of the brain, if you're right-handed, left side of the brain, if you're left-handed. So not the analytical part, but actually the one that looks like, that works here as a scanner attached to the tool, which is your hand. Okay. As always, yes, this time is your feedback is actually very valuable, so please leave a comment. If you have any questions, for example, I will answer them. And if you liked this episode, then also leave a like, subscribe. Yes, but you know, I'm looking forward for that comments because well, I enjoy teaching, you know, it's a great thing. So having that feedback from you will make me improve my ways here. So any suggestions, any questions? Okay, and I say goodbye. Thanks for watching and good luck.